Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Brian Stevens. He's the CEO at Neural Magic. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think what we're going to talk about today is actually really innovative, very cool. Selfishly, I'm really excited because I'm doing some stuff in the space and I really want your opinion on a bunch of things. But before we dive into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in upstate New York called Schuylerville.
Okay, very cool. So walk us through, you went to university. What did you take and why?
Yeah, like I'm probably gonna date myself because like in high school, it was really when like programming just started to become early parts of like high school curriculum, and so
Right.
I was able to I don't know if dabble is the right word, but get a little bit of experience, on that front. But I thought it was just a fun class to take, like for a
Okay.
creator. I didn't think could ever be a curriculum. And then we moved. The family grew up in New England, so even though we were kind of spending a lot of time in New York, born there and went through high school there, they wanted to get back to my parents' roots, Maine, New Hampshire. So we moved back my senior year, but the UNH thing kind of came about backwards because I actually wanted to be a creator, but I didn't know that you could do that with code. So I was trying to do it with wood, believe it or
Oh,
not.
interesting.
Yeah. And so I had like this guidance counselor that I just like have to pay down how much I owe him because he just like steered me in this other field, which was computer science, was just getting rocking. And the University of New Hampshire actually had a really great emerging computer science curriculum, and in part because they were Digital Equipment Corporation, that grew up in Massachusetts, and so UNH was kind of a feeder school of all their technology, and so just kind of fell into it there. To be honest, it was not like I was thinking about it for years, and just fell in love.
Very cool. So walk us through your career, maybe just some highlights along the way, because you've done a ton of stuff and I really want to kind of dive into Neural Magic and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Probably had like three main sections. The first was, like I said, it was digital. They did all their operating system development in southern New Hampshire, and so I joined that team, right out of college, and that was great because you really only got access to technology if you worked for a big company. Like the
Sure.
world of open source wasn't prevalent back then, and so if you wanted to like explore, then you had to work for somebody that had that capability. And then, but it was great for a young engineer because I just these brilliant people that I was able to spend my day with and learn from. And so that set me up. But I was an oddball computer science developer, CS developer, and that I really cared about the outcomes that technology was driving and the user experience that your audience had around those technologies. So I kind of fell into that direction. And that, fast forwarding, it led me to the future for enterprise wasn't going to be, these proprietary companies that were selling big, expensive servers and proprietary software stacks. It was going to be more along the lines of like commodity Intel. And so that was the pathway that led me to Red Hat. And then just first principles looked at what's a business model around open source, but then I think more importantly than that is, what do enterprises really need from technology stacks, and I don't mean just the features. I mean everything else around that. And we focused on that and not just speeds and feeds. And then and part of that was I was lucky to see that the public cloud's born. Amazon was our biggest customer at the time, so I saw that front row seat to that movie, and then went and joined Google for 5 years when they were just getting started and building cloud, and went there, moved out to California, and again, like, refocused them, away from just serving tech companies with cloud capabilities, and pointed that at enterprise, because I just felt like the opportunity for what enterprises need from as a service, like, was unfulfilled. Did that for 5 years. Dad was diagnosed Alzheimer's back in New Hampshire, and
Oh,
I
sorry to hear
needed to
that.
get back. Yeah, thank you. So that led a really quick transition back. Still stayed working for Google, but being remote pre-COVID, you were the odd person out. So did that for a couple of years, and then kind of wrapped that up, and had intended on just doing some boards and actually writing some code, and that was kind of where I was at up until COVID began.
Okay, so walk us through coming to Neural Magic, and what exactly is it?
Yeah. So Neural Magic was born out of MIT, and the two founders, and one of the founders, Nir Shavat, MIT professor, he focused. What he teaches on, what he's expert at, is really. He'll kill me the way I say it, but like really systems level infrastructure and performance. So really understanding how computer systems and specialized processors work, and then how you build that marriage between hardware and software efficiency. And so, really extraordinary person. And then along comes, the emerging field of AI and behavioral. And he started, looking at how would AI meet computer systems. And the ideas he had was that that existing commodity CPUs, Intel class CPUs, the things running in your MacBook, could become like really great processors for running machine learning models. And that was really contrarian back then. But that was really, his and his other co-founder Alex's early ideas on like building a tech stack that made AI work really amazingly well just on an ordinary CPU.
Okay, so walk us through how you came to be there and become CEO.
Sure. So my plan was, don't ever take a full time job again, and just get to explore and spend your time on the interesting pieces that, yeah, like. And so I'd reached that point, and I was very happy. And then unfortunately I met Nir, um, and and I just fell in love with him. I fell in love with yeah, I met him through a VC,
Okay.
a VC friend. Of mine, and just had dinner with him, but with no intentions. But he's just, he's the kind of person that you would love to spend time on with in any capacity, to be honest.
That's awesome.
And then, I was always like, the areas I spend my time on are areas that really trying to understand something that I don't understand, right? I mean, it sounds obvious, but that really intrigues me. And what I realized in the space of AI, machine learning specifically, it's everything you learn made you realize there's so much more you have to learn. So you'd love to
Sure.
feel like you're an expert, but I think the journey is you're never expert. And that to me was, at this point in my career, was really highly interesting. And, and with Near taking that focus around a contrarian view around, running on CPUs was really interesting. And so it was, the committed a day a week to help Neural Magic as they build a business. Did that for about a year and a half. COVID hits. All of a sudden, I realized, even though I only want to spend a day a week with them, realized I'm spending 7 days a week with them.
That's awesome.
And then, yeah, and he's a very persuasive guy, and I was very passionate about the space. So after a year and a half of advising them, I joined full time just about 3 years ago as CEO.
Very cool. So, what exactly does Neural Magic do? And then, can you maybe explain the concepts behind it without getting too technical? And because AI is everywhere, people hear that and machine learning. Do you maybe want to give us kind of like a high level of what you guys do, how it ties to that, and kind of where we're at in the space? Because I think there's a ton of myth around what's happening right now, too.
Sure. I would say if I kind of put the what AI can do aside for a second,
Sure, that's perfect.
and I go and look, and what I love now is like everybody has a really well, I'd say pretty well calibrated on the capabilities of AI, because even people that aren't in our fields, right, is experiencing it through like ChatGPT and other
Sure.
models, right? And so that's really interesting. So I think people can see um, these capabilities that didn't exist before. What we're trying to do at the highest level, like from a mission perspective, is bring those capabilities to enterprises, but bring them the capability. And so, in many ways, like that way to explain neural magic is to first talk about just the capabilities of AI that have really exploded, in the last, well, since November of 2022, when OpenAI made the ChatGPT model. So it's really easy for people to see these capabilities around, especially around large language models that didn't exist before. And what we're aiming, there was major breakthroughs on that. So like on how they got there, which is really, really compelling. But what Neural Magic is aiming to do is to enable enterprises to use that capability, but to do it in a way where they completely control their own destiny. And so it's really back to the open source roots that I grew up on with Red Hat, around the the control and flexibility that open source brings to um, end users and enterprises. And so one would argue like, well, yeah, but there's no open source capabilities in the AI space. Those are only like the big tech companies, and that's actually not true. So like an amazing um, group of AI models for large languages has been developed in open source with really permissive licensing. And the innovation rate of these new models, they get more accurate, they get faster on a month over month basis. So there's great set of choices that people have to own their own AI model. And what we're aiming to do is to help them use those open AI models and be able to optimize them in such a way that they can run anywhere that an enterprise would want them to, whether that's in their cloud zone, or whether that's inside of an existing data center, whether it's to run inside of a brick and mortar location. Once the model state of the art is opened up, it really puts customers and enterprises in control of their destiny. And the value of that is they get pure privacy. They can, one, they own the model. Two, they can customize the model as it makes sense, on data sets that make sense to their use case. And then they control like the terms of deployment and locations and their choice of infrastructure. So it can be this really liberating future where you'll get the best capability, but you'll get it on your terms. And where Neural Magic comes into that is there's these models are massive now,
Sure.
like, and that's
Okay.
LLM, large language models, right? And that was the breakthrough. The prior world was, large language models wouldn't actually behave any better than smaller models from a capability perspective, and that was actually turned out to not be true. So they're amazingly capable, but they're really hard to run just because they're so big. And so that's why the world, let's say, without neural magic, has been heading down this pathway that you got to like buy really expensive infrastructure to run the models on. And that infrastructure prevents a lot of optionality, that customers would have otherwise. And so we get in and we optimize the models and we build deployment capability that lets the models run like super efficiently across all infrastructure choices. And then so you get to pick, where and on what you want to run your AI models on, and that's really important, um, because if you really believe this world where these AI models are going to be parts of every application, and that's kind of what I subscribe to. In the future, they're just going to be libraries, and you're going to use AI capability, across the stack. Then you need the flexibility. You want that to feel like just any other application, and not a piece of the app that has to have like really expensive serving infrastructure in order to run it.
No, I agree with you. I think it's going to be in everything, and I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of things. But I'm curious. Okay, so if I'm a large retailer or a bank or like an enterprise company, how do I actually start using neural magic? Like, do you guys consult and kind of come in and look, or like, how do you figure out where I can actually implement the technology and where I should be using AI?
Sure. And so the where I should be using AI, most enterprises are already down that road, right? So
Okay.
they're already
Oh,
down.
interesting.
So they're already down the path of what you just said is use case selection. So where are, in some cases, the high valued ways I want to integrate? And typically, it's vision or language models
Okay.
inside of my existing enterprise, um, and so they're already. So we really meet them where they are, um, but albeit with the vision ones are have been going on for years. The large language models are really been only going on for like the last 6 to 9 months. Um, but so we work with them once they've um, defined the set of use cases that they want to use AI for, and then we work with them to really shoulder to shoulder to how to optimize their model simply, in a way that gives them the flexibility to run it on their preferred piece of infrastructure, you know and then often part of that too will come help with, in most cases they want to fine tune their AI models, because like if you like a good example is look at the open AI models. They're really amazing generally, but they won't have a level of specificity that might be important to an end user. And so to get that level of specificity, like one example that uses like it might know what a cucumber is, but it might not know the the condition, shape, size, etc., like of a cucumber. And
Right.
so what
Interesting.
enterprises do if you're in the cucumber business is they can actually fine tune and train their model, that existing model, like to know that level of specificity that makes sense for their use case. So we can help them with that fine tuning, but most importantly, we take these large language models and we shrink them down significantly, that in a way that keeps their accuracy, but the shrinking of the model means, as we were talking about before, these heavyweight models that are hard to run all of a sudden become much smaller models that are easier to run. So that's a big part of kind of the magic that is neural magic, is how do you actually make these models smaller but not lose any of the capability.
Right. Okay. And then how do you work with them kind of on a hardware optimization space? Because we all know that is part of the big
Yep.
challenge with AI right now, too.
Yep. And it's the two parts. So the first part is apply a set of model optimization techniques to their existing model,
Okay.
and that makes the model smaller. And it's obviously way more complicated than that, but it's not from an enterprise user, but like how that works is kind of rocket science. And then the second part is then what we were able to do is we're able to help them size. So really it means like choosing the right infrastructure. In this case, it's CPUs. Do you want to run on Intel, AMD, ARM? What size processors do you need? How much memory do you need? Aspects like that. What generational hardware do you want to use something that is legacy hardware that you've already have in your data center, or do you want to like take advantage of some of the newer capabilities of CPUs that are coming out that have like AI friendly instruction sets coming into them? So there's definitely help them with sizing. and then help them with optimization at runtime, because we also have a software stack that runs on the CPU that runs these models in a really performant way. And so there is a path where we work with them generally to do further optimizations at deployment size at deployment time.
Okay. So how does it work then from your side? Like, do you just bring in like different members of the team based on what the user's trying to do? Do I just basically go to your GitHub and start implementing? Or like, walk us through that.
Yep. So like the it's definitely a product led experience,
Okay.
meaning what we didn't want is we didn't want to have the call sales button on the website,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like, and so which is fine, is a great choice for many, but like we wanted to build a open community that enterprise developers or otherwise can just join our Slack, right, and actually get started. And so we
I
try to
see.
make the product capabilities, the documentation, the how tos all available. And then as people join the Slack, then and they can just go there for help on how to get started. They can go there when they have challenges. And so we meet them in Slack first for the community. And so there's thousands of, machine learning engineers that live in the Slack community, and we help them there. And then there's also enterprise pathways, because, sometimes that's not necessarily the best pathway for certain enterprises. So then the enterprise pathways are such that, we really look like a extension of their machine learning engineering team. So it's
Okay.
definitely the capability we have are codified through software products. When for the one set of software tools for the optimization piece, and then one set of software tools for how running it on CPUs in production. But still, though, with that, like the best thing you can do is to help machine learning engineers that are getting started, or this is new, to just help them shoulder to shoulder and act like an extension of their R&D team, and that's what we do.
Got it. Okay. You have some demos and examples on your GitHub page. Can you maybe give us some examples of how people have leveraged the technology, just so, people can say like, "Hey,
Sure.
I could actually use that."
Yeah, the vision is definitely further along, in terms of, because it's a more mature space.
Sure.
And so like for years, people have been using vision and neural magic for vision use cases. And then the large language models are really just, that's where all the fervor is right now, right?
Okay.
Is because it's going to have a larger impact on types of things that large language models can do for enterprises, from operational efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. So, but they're definitely earlier on that journey, with or without neural magic. But on the vision side, like, oh my gosh, customers like doing, self-driving car lane detection. Well, not necessarily self-driving car, but lane detection. So pretty much
Okay.
every new vehicle is going to have lane detection, right? So
Yeah.
imagine sticking like a big, heavyweight, power-hungry GPU into a car, not just for the cost, but just the power consumption and the failure rates, et cetera. These things they're not designed for that. So the ability just to run your AI model on your existing CPUs, that are already in cars for doing lane detection, is like one really powerful use case. Um,
Interesting.
it also includes, airplane use cases that are in there around for vision. Another set of eyes is always a really great thing, as we know.
Sure.
When you're taxing or otherwise, retail stores, a lot of using like our stack, and just generally retail stores that are in some cases helping with shrinkage. Just posited as if we're going to give you a better experience as you do your own self checkout, but also helping. I'm not sure that's a better user experience yet, but it's definitely deployed to help reduce the amount of shrinkage or theft, right, that retailers have. So that's happening generally across retail, including at like the as you walk out the door. So a number of things like that. Just anywhere you can imagine, like machine intelligence, for vision. There are usually cases at the edge that GPUs are difficult.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'm also curious to what are your thoughts on kind of the large action model stuff that's kind of coming out too? Are you guys going to ever go into that space, or what are your thoughts on that space?
We haven't yet. Like everything's really been large language right now. So
Okay,
we had the last year, and we're just about to bring out support for that. And the reason being is the way large language models process, they're even more taxing on infrastructure. So as much
sure,
as so the state of the art for natural language processing, there were smaller models before, and they didn't have the capabilities that these new large language models have, like these open source Llama, open source Mistral. These are really exciting new state of the art models that have the capability of what you'd see come out of the big tech for serving APIs. But they process completely different. They're really they actually need more infrastructure to run these because not only the amount of compute, but they really press on the memory requirements and memory bandwidth requirements that that you need to run these. And so, like a lot of our tech stack was rebuilt to support large language models specifically, so that you don't need to. So you can run them on CPUs, so that you can run them on even GPUs that have less memory or smaller GPUs. In many cases, you can use our optimization techniques, and you won't need a big GPU. You can use a small GPU. And so all that's really gives enterprises optionality, and is really liberating. It lets them use AI in use cases that that are more pervasive because the cost is reduced.
no, that's really cool. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on. You mentioned something earlier about like a lot of companies that you guys have been working with actually have what they want to do with AI. I've seen like where yes, that's true for some companies, but I've seen where companies maybe want to implement it, but they don't really know where to start or how to go about doing it. What are your thoughts around that, and how can Neural Magic like help them actually maybe go through that discovery a little bit more? Because let's be honest, not all of us are technical, and I think not a lot of people have still kind of played with AI, or maybe they have and they don't know they have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. And then like so we because we are even though we focus on the optimization aspects of that, so existing models that we optimize and make them run anywhere. The reality is we have the experience of I'd call it like the art of the possible.
Sure.
So if you looked at large language models, what are a reasonable set of expectations that an end user could have around the capabilities of these new AI models that are coming out? And so we can very much help them with that. So
Okay.
obviously, the part that they need to do is to really understand the 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 grounds up set of use cases they want to consider, and then we can help them down select that into some
Okay.
reasonable choices based on the AI capabilities. And one of the public companies that I'm on the board of did something similar, where they across their space and the way they work with customers, they looked at over 1,000 use cases. So they
Oh
kind of
wow.
crowdsourced 1,000 use cases of the types of things that AI could do, and then they down selected that into the 10 based on the capabilities of large language models today. And that I think is a really very reasonable choice, because you said it best. I'd say like this, it's a world where everybody's doing it, but not everybody's like delivered to production yet,
Yeah.
right? Because I think it's like, there's skills that are needed as well, right, around this, and assembling your machine learning engineering team, that has the ability to not just assess the use cases, but then also get the right model into production and maintain it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I really want to talk about maybe this is kind of high level, but it seems like if you read the news, it's like, you know, AI is taking over the world and going to destroy it, which is no worse. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but we are so far from that ever being an issue that, like, so, like, where are we actually at with, kind of AI and machine learning? Because I think there's so many myths out there, and there's so much paranoia around it. So can you maybe like talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like I think a lot's changed in a year.
Sure.
Like we weren't talking about these things a year ago. So the capabilities, I worry less about the sentient AI model, right? That's learning and smarter than people.
Yeah.
The part that keeps me up at night is because just like even the open source AI models can help enterprises become more efficient, right? What used to take a knowledge worker to analyze data is like now all of a sudden the knowledge worker is just making the decision, the data is analyzed for them, like in a
Yeah.
really meaningful way across like large volumes of data. Like those like knowledge workers have just been like completely empowered
100%.
through the use of AI. And that's amazing because it's all around like, having more output per person. Right. So I don't look at this as the world where you don't need people. I look at the world where the business output per person is just going to go up much higher. And that's an amazing thing. But I do worry less around the sending aspect and more around the fact like, if we've, you know, also armed, the bad people, right? Like,
Sure.
so like in my eyes, just because I think like, like if you're trained in technologies, you can look at an email and you can look at it and know that, okay, that's a phishing email. That's, not, there's no way. You look at the URL, there's just different aspects of it, right? That you can look at and know like it's spam, it's fake, and, don't click that link. That's going to become next to impossible,
Yeah.
down the road. And that's, I think it's area. So so it's going to be a security arms race as well, because the quality of the bad people is just they're going to get a more robust set of tools, right? It'll actually literally
Yeah.
look like, today, like the faking PayPal stuff looks like fake PayPal,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I can see
100%.
this world down the road where, man, that looks really credible. And so that's the stuff that I think worries me the most in the next, number of years.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But to your point before that about like it's changed my workflow immensely and just saved me a ton of time. Like I moved my default search engine away from Google just to one of these like chatbots now because it's quicker and it gives me better things. And then I'm generating design ideas with, AI sometimes. And sure, it maybe only gets you 20 to 80% of the way to a screen. But if I can just, on the days you're not feeling creative, if it can just spark some
Right.
creativity quickly and you can
Yeah.
iterate from there, like, and then you can summarize things and make me a better writer. Like it's not really taking away, it's taking away maybe some of the boring parts or the parts I hate or
Right.
the parts I'm not good at, but it's not wrecking my job, at least not today.
Yeah, like you're more effective, right? I mean, your output's
100%.
not, maybe it's better quality, but you're certainly more effective, and your output, that you get done, is amazing. And like even in your design background,
Yep.
right? Like you be starting from, some, you can probably have like a software tool that you now can, develop you some of the starting designs that you want. Not, and so
Yep.
it's not
Yep.
just, text. And I think that's really powerful. And so I agree. So like you're further along than I am. I've used all of the models. It hasn't changed what I've done in search. It's just become a daily tool that I used for different tasks, together with search, at least the types of things that I use search for. So it's just like, yeah, it's not just one thing goes to the next. It's just like we've been armed with this amazing tool that's going to make us much more productive.
Well, yeah, and like even just something as simple as okay, like I have a design and then I can test it through AI like a heat map thing, and then out of Figma you can get it to write, React or whatever code you want. Sure, it's not
Right.
100%, but it's a better to give the developer 80%. Maybe they're going to have to rewrite some stuff than
Right.
them starting from scratch, right? And then I can go in and tweak. Like it's changed my workflow immensely, right? And I think if it can, it's obviously only going to get better. And if people, I think the big thing is, and I want your opinion on this, is it's coming whether people want it or not. It's already here, arguably. You basically need to adopt these tools to make yourself better than trying to say like, no, don't do that because it's going to wipe me out, right? You're
Yeah,
going to have to
yeah,
just
yeah,
embrace it.
yeah. And I think that's true. Like you were saying, like if you had to back up the clock, what degree would you pick, right? And
Yes,
is your is your the thing you pick going to be automated away, or is it going to be empowered? And
100%. Yeah,
I'm of the camp like all these degrees. I'm just maybe I'm contrarian, but I'm of the camp like these the jobs are still going to exist, but man, you're going to be just supercharged. You know, not just like I'll date myself. You know, back at UNH when we the comp just the you'd write 1,000 line program,
yep,
right? And back then, like just the taxing that you had on the infrastructure, it could take it an hour to compile that program.
sure.
So the reality of it was, and so look at today's computers, like you compile in seconds. So today people use they don't have to write quality code because the compiler like catches everything right away. We had to like really, the tax of having a bug in your code was really high
Yep.
because it cost you an hour a turn. So we got really good at like developing software first, developing a program first out of the gate. So I look at it as like you just said, like the design tools, the writer authoring tools, the code, the open source code models, and there's
Yep.
the pay per token ones like GitHubs and stuff like that. But the the open source coding tools are really popular, and if all of a sudden you can accelerate and generate half the code, you know what I mean, that a
Yep.
developer
Yep.
would have, that a developer uses, that's really powerful, and it's only going to get better. But yeah, they're still going to be there. It's still a job. They're just going to like get way more done, and you're going to end up being. You're going to have the company that you work for or the startup you work for is going to have an even more robust set of tools, but you'll still exist. But it's going to
Sure.
look much more productive.
100%. Well, even some of the no code tools now are like the barrier to entry into the space now to even build your own startup. Like Flutterflow's
Yeah,
really good,
yeah,
and Bubble's not bad for certain things. Like there's a bunch of really good no code tools. And then the crazy thing about it, and I'm not a developer, like we've kind of covered throughout the show. Like I built my own chatbot in Flutterflow connecting to ChatGPT. Like sure, it
yeah,
was a tutorial online, but 2 years ago, I would like it would not have been possible for me to do that.
yeah,
Like, or I would have struggled so hard and needed like so much time. And what I built in an afternoon just wasn't possible for me to do like 2 years ago.
yeah,
And why I'm
yeah,
bringing this back is because I think what you guys are doing at Neural Magic, like anybody can leverage the technology that you're building, whether you're technical or not, because I think there's so many tools that you could just leverage to use your basically large language model backend basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I mean, there's it's gotten so much easier, and we're only a few years in. I love I mean, in the low code, like that's a great example because like the low code was trying to solve the same problem, make development
Yep.
more efficient, right? You shouldn't have to
Yep.
be like understand how to build a full stack program, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. And so the mission of AI helping that process, they're really kindred spirits, and like yeah, like I just don't want to see this world where AI is used for the most highly valued use cases because it's really expensive, and so it has to have an ROI. So I don't want end users have to do an ROI analysis of can I afford, whether it's the infrastructure or paying per token, right? Like I want to eliminate that and just let AI be used everywhere that's helpful, and you're not making a cost analysis of whether it delivers the value, you know what I mean, for the cost that, it takes to deploy it. And I just think like, and so again, it's very aligned with open source, and, let's just go commoditize this whole space around these deep models, not just the frameworks around
Yeah,
them, but deep
that's
models, and make them
that
easy for people to use and adapt.
that's actually really fascinating. So how does Neural Magic monetize then?
So everything around the ways you optimize models,
Okay.
we've just made open source. So like so pre-deployment. So there's a lot of techniques around quantization that are out there that we've led all the research on these new, the best quantization algorithms that are out there, as well as what we're known for is also sparsity, which is how do you like zero out a lot of what's called the model weights that these things have. And if you can zero out 80% of the model weights and keep 99% of the accuracy, then you got something. But that side, we've all open sourced that. So all
Oh,
these
very
tools
cool.
and research techniques on how to optimize a model, we've open sourced. And then what we monetize is when somebody gets to the point where they want to put these AI models to work in production use cases,
Right.
then we monetize the deployment side engine that
Okay.
runs on the CPUs. So it comes by way of a subscription with support and everything around helping people with the their deployment stack and the models they're using, et cetera, et cetera.
Got you. That makes sense. And it's just like a pay per usage kind of thing, or how does that work?
It's a paper package, so it can be
Okay.
sized based on the type of problem you're solving. So the easiest way, because it accelerates model optimization. So it can make a set of CPUs 4 to 12x faster. Is you just take a tiny piece of that, the efficiency that you gave them back through way of subscription, but then the value you bring to them is a development partner, and a support partner that helps them on their journey.
No, makes a lot of sense. So you've been in this tech space a long time, some very big roles at some very big companies. What advice do you give to people that are maybe just starting out, people that are been in the industry a long time, and just any other advice that you've kind of learned along the way that you'd like to pass on?
Yeah, I think what helped me a lot was, especially on the engineering side, is don't get buried into the technology. Um, really understand the experience that you're creating for an end user, whether it's consumer or enterprise, et cetera, right? Doesn't matter, but just really understand the problem you're solving, the experience that your end user would have in using the technology, and focus and be manic about that. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you build. And I think as software developers, it's often too easy to get caught up into the software part itself and
Yeah.
not the ultimate problem that you're trying to solve for. And so that ends up, what it means is you end up wanting to become super user centric, right?
Right.
Conversation, that's what I always love, like all the user research. Like you want to be, the best way is to be, I think, be a developer, but then innovate and increment quickly, through a direct relationship with your users and advance it along lines that make sense for them.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. And I think the nice thing about what you just said is, like, whether you love Apple or hate Apple, they basically made that their business model, right? Like,
Right.
it's not perfect, but like they were one of the first companies to say, like, we really care about user experience. And that doesn't necessarily always mean just like the interface. It's like from everything they do, it's all about the user and the customer and trying to make them happy. It's not perfect, but like I think that makes a lot of sense, because in my experience, and you could tell me if I'm wrong here, is it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 features. If nobody gets past the sign up box, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. And people, and yet that's why I love, like, I've always said, like, the user experience starts with discovery,
Yeah,
right? Like, and
100%.
and it's not just like once I installed it and how it works. And like you said, people often like think, and I must kill you, like the user experience is just the UI.
Yep.
And so mine was like, how did they discover us? Like, what did they first see? How did they try? How did they procure? Like, what was the contracting? I mean, a big part of the work at Google was making contracting so simple. Like, what is that
Yeah.
experience like? Like the whole user journey, like really matters. And so I even started, like you mentioned Apple, like when I buy a consumer product and I open it up, I like spend my time on the packaging and like,
Yeah, 100%.
how easy is to open it? Did they get this part right? Like, I just think it's the whole end-to-end experience. And I think too few people don't think that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I always tell people that I think everybody at a company should be doing user experience, because
Yeah,
if you don't have customers, everybody goes home or has to get a new job. Like, that's the
absolutely.
reality.
Yeah, I always said we all work for sales,
Yeah,
as an engineer, and that was like why, like you talking about like Apple, like the early D school stuff at Stanford was some of the things that I tried to emulate, back at Red Hat, like
interesting.
long time ago, just like getting back in touch, you know what I mean, with who your users are and meeting their needs.
Sure. But Brian, we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, Neural Magic, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, like I know we went through a lot. Like I think the beginning user voyage is to come to neuralmagic.com, and there you can jump off. Like you can jump off into the community if you want to go the direction, or you can just set up a session, and one of our engineers or sales team will kind of take you through what we do and how we can help. And so we're very much around meeting people where they want to be right now and where
That's
they're
awesome.
at in their journey, and then helping them with that.
Perfect, Brian. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Kevin. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.